The girl mysteriously disappeared after running away from home. When the police found her, her body has been made into sausages. The murderer is straightforward. Her parents lied a lot. That's when I realized that the scariest thing in the world is love. A missing girl named Suji Ayan, a sophomore in high school, standing tall and graceful. Her parents graduated from prestigious schools and both are leaders in the public sector. Suji Ayan comes from a wealthy family and likes to play tennis. Zoo's father enrolled her in a closed tennis youth training camp. However, the next day, Zoo's mother found that her daughter was missing and her phone was turned off. The two hurried to the youth training camp, only to learn a shocking news. On the day of entering the camp, Suji Ayan left, with the withdrawal fee on the grounds of physical discomfort. This made Zoo's parents very anxious, and they immediately called the police. We rushed to the youth training camp to check the surveillance footage, and found that Suji Ayan had indeed left. Most cases of girls running away from home are to meet online friends. I asked Zoo's parents if they could log into their daughter's social media account. Zoo's father and mother repeatedly stated that Suji Ayan could not have an online relationship. We never let her use a smartphone. Is it possible that he bought a phone privately? We won't give him pocket money, and it's impossible to buy a phone without permission. My colleague and I exchanged a glance. Nowadays, it's almost impossible to move around without a mobile phone in this society. Besides, Suji Ayan is already in high school. Isn't it exaggerated to be so strict? However, on the other hand, if Suji Ayan does not have a mobile phone, he is unlikely to go far away. So we started looking for leads from nearby surveillance cameras. Sure enough, after Suji Ayan left the youth training camp on foot, she turned around and walked into a commercial street and never came out again. There are more than 20 merchants on this commercial street, most of which have surveillance cameras, but only 3 stores are not installed. They are Han Yu, who runs a cake shop, Lu Ming, who runs a noodle shop, and Wang Fengshen, who runs a meat shop. Considering that Suji Ayan is in her prime, if he encounters an accident, the murderer's motive is unlikely to be money, most likely sex. Han Yu is a single parent, Lu Ming has a wife and daughter, and only Wang Fengshen, who is older and single, is the most suspicious. We brought Wang Fengshen back to the bureau for interrogation. This person is in his 40s, slightly bald, with a bloated figure, and is nicknamed Wang Pangsy. No criminal record. Looks kind from the outside. To be honest, doesn't look like a criminal. We asked him a few questions, but no matter what we asked, Wang Fengshen neither defended nor answered, and remained silent for several hours. Wang Fengshen suddenly made a strange request. I want to meet his parents. In theory, we cannot agree to his request. But if Wang Fengshen continues to remain silent, the case will be difficult to proceed. After obtaining the consent of the leader, I brought the parents of Wang Fengshen and Suji Ayan to the office at the same time. As soon as they met, Wang Fengshen said that Suji Ayan had died. I returned his bones and flesh to you, and Zoo's mother collapsed on the spot, squatting on the ground and sobbing. Mr. Su raised the fire extinguisher and rushed towards Wang Fengshen. We quickly stopped him, and it took a lot of effort to pull the couple out of the office. Jiajia's body has not been found yet. Since there is no body, it is too early to judge whether Jiajia was killed. Don't be too desperate. Zoo's father tried to push me away several times, and rushed into the interrogation room to beat Wang Fengshen. Zoo's mother grabbed my uniform and burst into tears. That beast has already admitted it with his own mouth. Does my daughter still have a chance to live? I feel very uncomfortable. Since Wang Fengshen has pleaded guilty, Suji Ayan is probably in danger. However, the top priority is to find the motive for the murder weapon on the body. Only a complete chain of evidence can send Wang Fengshen to the gallows. His confession alone is not enough to convict him. I found a junior sister to comfort Suji Ayan's parents. Return to the interrogation room and continue questioning Wang Fengshen. How did you kill Suji Ayan? What about the body you strangled? How did you handle it? I could open its body, remove the internal organs, cut the fascia, and remove the flesh piece by piece from the bones. I threw the meat into the meat grinder and ground it into filling, then poured it into sausages. I cooked the bones in a pressure cooker until they were crispy. Mixed with pork bones and beef bones, which you can't distinguish. I broke out in a cold sweat. Wang Fengshen described the scene of dismemberment in great detail. I seemed to be standing next to him, watching him use a cow knife to dismember a teenage girl. My colleague and I discussed and asked him to take the evidence collection department to Wang Fengshen's butcher shop to collect evidence. I continued to interrogate Wang Fengshen and dig out the motive for the crime. Why did you kill Su Jian? For money or revenge? Did you violate Su Jian before he died? Wang Fengshen seems tired and ignores my questions. I had to ask him if he knew Su Jian's parents. I think Wang Fengshen probably won't give me more leads, so I'll temporarily detain him, then go find Su Jian's parents. Do you know Wang Fengshen? Do you have any conflicts with him? Zhu's parents shook their heads. We have never seen him before. I was stunned for a moment. What about Su Jian? Is it possible that he knows Wang Fengshen? It's impossible. We never let Jia do housework. He can't even tell the difference between pork and beef. Of course, he doesn't know Wang Fengshen. I'm a little puzzled. Reason tells me that Wang Fengshen shouldn't lie. He hardly deceived during the interrogation process, so why did Zhu's parents lie? Even if they have done something wrong to Wang Fengshen, they are still victims now, and the law will not make things difficult for them. I realize that this case may not be as simple as murder and dismemberment. Zhu's parents are not suspects. They don't want to tell the truth. I have no choice but to hope that my colleagues can find any new leads. After about 2 hours, a colleague called. He said that in Wang Fengshen's meat shop, there is pig blood, cow blood, and sheep blood everywhere, and it is difficult to find Su Jian's blood. We can only take the hundreds of caddies of sausages he hung in the store and take them back for DNA testing. I never want to eat clay pot rice in my life. Although obtaining evidence is extremely difficult, no one is willing to watch the murderer walk out with a smile. All forensic experts at the Public Security Bureau Appraisal Center voluntarily worked overtime and picked out sausages containing Su Jian's DNA from hundreds of sausages. A total of 36 sausages. Looking at this pile of white sausages, many people vomited. The cruelty of Wang Fengshen is simply beyond imagination. The next question is, how should we return this pile of sausages to Su Jian's parents? I found the best psychological counselor from the bureau to communicate with Su Jian's parents. As expected, Zhu's mother fainted upon hearing her daughter's miserable condition. Zhu's father's eyes were red, staring at me. When will you sentence Wang Fengshen to death? As long as the evidence is conclusive, the court can pronounce the verdict on the same day, and then it can be executed after approval by the Supreme People's Procuratorate. This process takes at least 7 or 8 days. Okay, I believe you. If the law can't kill this animal, I'll kill him myself. Su Jian's parents urged me every day to transfer the case to the prosecutor's office. They can no longer tolerate the killer of their daughter living one more day. But I think there is still a lot more to this case. First of all, Wang Fengshen's motive. Most of the murder and dismemberment cases I am familiar with are attempts by the murderer to eliminate evidence driven by fear after the murder. The characteristic of this case is that the murderer often performs on the spot, but the result is full of loopholes, and it is not difficult to investigate. However, Wang Fengshen's behavior was premeditated, and he handled the body exceptionally cleanly. His motive is obviously not fear, but seeking wealth and sexual desire does not make sense. If money is needed, Wang Fengshen can be kidnapped. There is no need to kill. If it's just venting, he's not even afraid of the death penalty, and he can be sentenced to several years for. After much consideration, the only reasonable motive I can think of is hatred. I have privately investigated the background information of Wang Fengshen and Zhu's parents. They are completely from two different worlds, and I can't find any intersection between the two. I'm afraid the truth can only be told to me by Wang Fengshen or Zhu's parents themselves. But Wang Fengshen remained silent, and Zhu's parents refused to tell the truth. I decided to provoke them. I told Zhu's parents that the prosecutor's office returned the case. The reason is that the murderer's motive is insufficient and additional evidence is needed. This process may take a year. Su Fu couldn't accept this result. He got angry at me. Wang Fengshen is a lunatic. Does a madman need a motive to kill someone? Maybe killing is as meaningless to him as eating and drinking. I remind Mr. Su that a madman who kills someone does not need to bear legal responsibility. If I write this in the report, Wang Fengshen may be released from prison soon. Please think carefully. Have you really never met Wang Fengshen? Even just once? Zhu's mother bit her lips tightly, and her eyes suddenly widened. Could this Wang Fengshen be? Zhu's father looked confused, and Zhu's mother quickly made a strange gesture. He seemed to be holding something with both hands and waved it forward. Zhu's father's eyes widened instantly. He turned around and threatened me by poking my chest. Listen to me carefully. Many of my colleagues are leaders in the public security, procuratory, and court. Hurry up and kill this Wang Fengshen for me. Otherwise, I will make you leave immediately. Zhu's father's threat was not groundless, and I quickly felt the pressure. The captain asks me every day when the case will be closed, and the director personally urges me to transfer the case to the prosecutor's office without undue delay. But the more pressure Su Fu puts on me, the more I can't let go. In this case, I think Wang Fengshen must have been treated unfairly. So he killed Su Jiayan to vent his anger. I copied the surveillance footage of myself, chatting with Zhu's father and mother, and repeatedly studied his movements. His hands seemed to hold something and swung forward suddenly, looking like he was fishing. I consulted a few fishermen in Tibet, but they watched the video and said it didn't look like fishing. The fishing hook is very sharp, and if thrown behind, it is easy to hook the skin and clothes. His movements are so big, it's more like hitting something. The word type reminds me. I immediately ran to the nearby tennis court to observe the players' hitting movements. It was found that Sumu's action was a standard backhand shot. Could it be that Wang Fengshen and the Su couple had a conflict because of tennis? There is nothing related to tennis in Wang Fengshen's government affairs. And to be honest, he doesn't look like a tennis player at all. I had to run to Zhu's house to look for leads. I bought some gifts at the supermarket, and under the guise of condolences, Zhu's mother let me in. Unlike Wang Fengshen, the Su couple are typical tennis enthusiasts. Their rackets are hung in a very conspicuous position in the living room. There are trophies and photos on the shoe cabinet at the door, and I suggested taking a look at Su Jiayan's room. But Zhu's mother told me that Su Jiayan doesn't have her own room. She usually studies in the study and sleeps with me at night. My husband slept in another bedroom, and I was surprised. Doesn't this mean that Su Jiayan has no privacy of her own? Zhu's mother seems to have some difficulty to speak secrets, she said in a secretive manner. Who let that child always sneak a peek at novels in the middle of the night? His nearsightedness is hundreds of degrees, and we can't do anything about it. I increasingly feel that Su Jiayan's parents are indeed somewhat strange. Their desire for control over their daughter can be described as perverted. Living in such a family, it is no wonder that the girl wants to leave home. But the problem is, how did she happen to meet Wang Fengshen on her way out of home? Is there such a coincidence? I suddenly thought of a possibility. Could it be that Su Jiayan took the initiative to find Wang Fengshen? I guess there may be some unspeakable secrets between Su Jiayan and Wang Fengshen. But one of them is a beautiful young girl in her prime, and the other is a middle-aged, greasy man in his 40s. I really can't imagine what kind of relationship they have, considering that Su Jiayan was monitored by her parents almost the entire time at home. The only chance for him to contact Wang Fengshen is probably at school. I went to Su Jiayan's school with a photo of Wang Fengshen to visit and investigate, but his teachers and colleagues said they had never seen him. Just as I was about to leave, a girl with a manicure suddenly grabbed me. "If I provide you with leads, is there any reward?" I smiled bitterly. Wang Fengshen had already been arrested and brought to justice. There was no reward. But I really need leads. I added the girl on WeChat and sent her a 200 yuan red envelope. Her name is Li Che, and all the photos in her friend's circle are of various nightclubs. Li Che didn't tell me the leads immediately, but asked me to wait for her at the school gate after school. I can only promise that Li Che will run towards me after school. She took my arm and kissed me on the face. I was scared and quickly pushed her away. If my patrolling colleagues saw this, I would have to write 10,000 words of self-criticism. Li Che winked at me. "Help me, I've been harassed by some hooligans recently. If they see that I have a police officer as my boyfriend, no one will dare to harm me." I looked across and sure enough, 4 spirited young men were sitting in a Honda. They saw me and quickly rolled up the car window and left. Li Che asked me to treat him to milk tea. He took out a box of cigarettes from his backpack and lit them in front of me. I started to worrying, has he really met Wang Fengshen? Is he lying to me? First, tell me why Su Jiayan didn't come to school and why you want to investigate his matter. He died. Murder. I knocked on Wang Fengshen's photo. This person is the suspect. Li Che picked up the photo and carefully examined it, asserting that it was impossible. He was definitely not the murderer. On what basis do you say that? This person is Su Jiayan's father. How could he possibly kill his own daughter? Li Che told me his story. His parents are truck drivers who transport tomatoes from Xinjiang and bananas from Guangxi, traveling throughout the country all year round. When he was a child, Li Che accompanied his parents in a sports car, and his father was afraid that he would be bored. I bought him a children's tennis racket, a bag rope tennis ball fixed with bricks. From then on, every highway parking area became his training ground. Li Che likes tennis, and tennis is his childhood. As he gets older, tennis becomes his dream again. His parents discovered Li Qi's talent and hired a professional coach to train him. He also lived up to expectations, winning multiple championships in youth competitions and entering prestigious schools with his tennis talent. However, since meeting Su Jiayan, Li Qi's dream has been destroyed. Unlike the lively and active Li Che, Su Jiayan is introverted and has few friends at school, but he plays tennis very well. What Li Che couldn't accept was that Su Jiayan not only had excellent grades, but also came from a wealthy family, a perfect young lady. He once privately begged Su Jiayan to let go because for Li Che, his only chance to go to college is to win a place in a provincial competition, and Su Jiayan is almost always in Rome. He felt that Su Jiayan did not need to compete with him for this opportunity, but Su Jiayan refused Li Qi's request and won the selection competition. Li Qi's mind was extremely confused, so he gathered a group of friends in society, ambushed on Su Jiayan's way home, ready to teach this ignorant young lady a lesson. I almost succeeded if it weren't for this man protecting Su Jiayan. I must break one of his legs. Li Che pointed to Wang Fengshen's photo and said angrily, "On what basis do you assert that Wang Fengshen is Su Jiayan's father? He may just be Su Jiayan's uncle, or just a brave passerby." There were more than a dozen of us at the time, and most people wouldn't dare to meddle in other people's business. But this man desperately protected Su Jiayan, not caring about his injured appearance, just like his father protecting me. I think this lead is very important, so I sent Su Jiayan's DNA and Wang Fengshen's blood sample for paternity testing. The identification center ruled out the blood relationship between the two. But even if they are not father and daughter, the relationship between Su Jiayan and Wang Fengshen is extraordinary. He should have no reason to kill Su Jiayan. Just then, the phone suddenly rang. It was a colleague calling. Wang Fengshen's case has been sentenced to death. He pleaded guilty in court and did not appeal. Originally, the leader didn't want me to tell you, but I think you have the right to know. Don't say you heard it from me. I was surprised. It seems that Zhu's father has tried his best to transfer the case to the prosecutor's office. My time is running out. The death penalty needs to be reviewed by the Supreme People's Procuratorate before execution. Wang Fengshen has pleaded guilty, so this process will be very fast, probably only 1 or 2 days. I rushed to the detention center, where Wang Fengshen was reading a novel with shackles on his feet, which was Yuhua's It's Ironical to Live. How did Su Jiandi? Wang Fengshen glanced at me. Didn't I already say it was strangled? Okay, even if what you said is true, then your arm. Why are there no scratches of Su Jian's resistance? People who are strangled often struggle frantically, but you are not injured at all. Wang Fengshen immediately changed his words. I knocked him out first and then strangled him to death so he couldn't struggle. Wang Fengshen's actions and expressions betrayed him. I have confirmed that it was definitely not Wang Fengshen who killed Su Jian. The murderer may be someone else. This can also explain why Wang Fengshen used extremely cruel means to dispose of Su Jian's body and then confess to the crime. Because he wants to protect the murderer, help the murderer clear his name, and destroying the body is the best way to prevent investigation. But who could the murderer be? Why is he so important to Wang Fengshen that this man is willing to bear the death penalty for him? Wang Fengshen is single, he has never been married, and has no children. His parents passed away early. In theory, there should be no close person worth protecting desperately. In addition, his relationship with Su Jian is also intriguing. Why did he protect Su Jian and then protect the murderer who killed Su Jian? Isn't this contradictory unless later I came to terms with it and felt that I didn't need to scare myself? This is fate. As the saying goes, if you survive a great disaster, you will have blessings in the future. Wang Fengshen quietly read that book. The guard called him out, and he folded a corner of the leaf, and folded a neat equilateral triangle on the bunk. 6 people came to see him, 2 armed police, 2 bailiffs, a forensic doctor, and a team leader. Wang Fengshen's legs were a little weak, although there was no notice. But the tolerance and kindness of the guard last night had given him foresight, and he tried to stand up straight. He has rehearsed this day countless times in his mind. The team leader took out a piece of paper, checked his identity information with him, and then asked him to sign on it. Wang Fengshen picked up the pen and neatly wrote down the 3 characters Wang Fengshen, and the last bunch was a bit crooked. He frowned. Do you have anything else to explain or convey? Wang Fengshen shook his head. By the way, the novel I read was marked on page 147. Can you help me restore the page? The guard was stand for a moment and nodded impatiently. Wang Fengshen was taken to the gate of the detention center, and the guards removed Wang Fengshen's handcuffs and shackles. He finally relaxed a bit, but then the bailiff tied him up with a lock and a restraining rope. Wang Fengshen was escorted onto an execution vehicle modified by Coaster. The bailiff fixed him on an iron bed, and the forensic doctor conducted a physical examination for him, inserted an injection needle into his vein, and finally added a blood oxygen meter to his left middle finger. The leader was examined and then retreated to the observation room with the forensic police. 2 bailiffs took out 3 tubes of drugs from the refrigerator, including anesthetic muscle relaxation and lethal cyanide. With the first injection of medication, Wang Fengshen felt drowsy. He breathed a sigh of satisfaction. As long as he died, the whole plan would come to a successful end, and that person would be safe. Wang Fengshen waited quietly for death to come. But strangely, his brain was still working and his heart was still beating. He felt a little thirsty, and Wang Fengshen became a little impatient. He wanted to ask the bailiff for a glass of water. Anyway, I'm going to die. It's not too much to drink a glass of water before leaving, right? But the anesthesia was really too strong. Wang Fengshen's tongue was numb. He couldn't say a word. He opened his eyes and found himself lying in a workroom. Two doctors stood around, shining flashlights into his eyes. Are you human or ghost? It's a person. You're not dead. This is a courthouse. The doctor confirmed that Wang Fengshen had regained consciousness and notified the bailiff to take him to the dock. In the courtroom, Zhu's parents were very angry when they saw Wang Fengshen appear in court. What does this mean? Why is this death row inmate still alive? Please give me an explanation immediately, leaders of your hospital, because an extremely important witness appeared in this case. This court believes that Wang Fengshen's sentencing is inappropriate and must be retried. The Su couple turned around and suddenly turned pale with fear, stunned. The person standing on the witness stand is unexpectedly Su Jiayan. Under the shocked gaze of Zhu's father and mother, Su Jiayan slowly walked forward. Are his hands rubbing his skirt hard? He looks a little nervous. Excuse me, are you really Su Jiayan? The girl replied in a timid voice. Yes, I am Su Jiayan. I am studying in class 4, grade 2 of Shijingno, 1 middle school. My mother is Li Hongmai and my father is Su Miaozhen. Please explain to this court what happened on April 30th, the day you went to the tennis training base. On April 30th, my father drove me to the tennis training base. I applied to the coach at the training base to withdraw on the grounds of physical discomfort. Why lie? Someone asked me to do this. Who is it? My father Su Miaozhen. What did he make Yuli? Because I wanted to take me to a hotel room without telling my mother. In his words, these days are your safe period, and it doesn't matter if you don't take safety measures. The crowd was in an uproar, and then what? Where did you go after leaving the training base? Originally, my father asked me to leave the camp the next day and wait for him at the camp. But I ran away that day, and after leaving the training base, I went to Dongxing Commercial Street. Why go where? Go find Wang Fengshen. What is your relationship with Wang Fengshen? He is my friend. How did you meet him? In theory, your lives should have no intersection. I don't know either, but one time I almost got beaten up, and Wang Fengshen desperately protected me. Since then, I have known that this fat uncle is a good person and someone who can protect me. What are you going to do with Wang Fengshen? How do you want him to help you? I want to ask him to mash my dirty body into minced meat and make sausages. Then I send it to my parents and trick them into eating it. This is the only way I can think of to retaliate against them. Su Jiayan's tears were like broken pearls patting on the microphone. And then, did Wang Fengshen refuse your request? Yes, he told me that your name is Jie Yin, which means good news. No matter what you have experienced, you must live well in the future, and good things will come to you. But I've really had enough. I've had enough of that beast's father, everything he did to me. I've had enough. My mother turns a blind eye to my father. So I threatened Wang Fengshen that if he didn't agree, I would commit suicide. Anyway, I won't let that beast touch me again. So Wang Fengshen hid me in a bakery and cut off my hair. He said he would use these hairs to fake my death and free me from the constraints of my family. The judge nodded and then summoned the forensic expert from the appraisal center. May I ask if the 36 sausages provided by the public security organs containing Su Jiayan's DNA contain human tissue after verification? When we first started collecting evidence, we sampled. Their probes cultured bacteria and compared it with Su Jiayan's DNA. So if there is a large amount of hair mix in the sample, it will indeed interfere with the test results. After all, pork and human tissue are very similar, and even experienced forensic doctors find it difficult to distinguish the two from a pile of minced meat. Later, after being reminded by the investigating police, we confirmed the contents of the sausage through a chromatographic analyzer. The conclusion is that the meat inside is all pork down in. yellow base oil, and does not contain human tissue. The judge nodded and then turned to Wang Fengshen. I'm curious, what is your reason for doing this? Why are you willing to sacrifice your life for Su Jiayan? Wang Fengshen remained silent for a while, and I requested the witness to recuse himself. The judge gestured for the bailiff to take Su Jiayan away. At first, he was a little reluctant, but Wang Fengshen insisted that Su Jiayan leave, so he had to go with the bailiff. After Su Jiayan left, Wang Fengshen slowly said, Su Jiayan is my daughter. Impossible, I don't have a paternity test report for you and Su Jiayan. You are not his biological father. Wang Fengshen smiled bitterly. Let me tell you a story. Heavy snow on New Year's Eve 2002. Wang Fengshen, who had just closed the door, carried a bag of mincemeat and walked deep into the alley. Wild Kataji just gave birth to a litter of kittens, but it's particularly cold this year. Wang Fengshen was worried that the mother and son would not survive this winter, so he made a nest for Ji in the cardboard box while wearing a cotton coat. Feeding with leftover scraps from the store every day, he opened the cardboard box and was about to feed, but the scene in front of him surprised Wang Fengshen. A baby girl was stuffed into the dilapidated cat bed. The 4-month-old baby girl, her face red from the cold, was curled up next to Aggie for warmth. Fortunately, Aggie had just become a mother. With a gentle personality, she not only did not attack the baby girl, but wrapped her fluffy tail around her as if she were her own cub. Wang Fengshen immediately thought of calling the police. But today is New Year's Eve, and the police may have already finished work. He took off his military coat and gently carried the baby girl out of the cat bed. Ji was still a little dissatisfied and kept scratching him with his paws. Wang Fengshen had to push him aside, carefully wrap the baby girl, and quickly return to the store. As soon as she entered the store, the baby girl cried loudly from hunger, which made Wang Fengshen very anxious. The shops are closed, and he doesn't know where to buy milk powder. Wang Fengshen had to cut to pieces of pork bones, throw them into the pot, and cook them into white soup, and feed the baby girl spoonful by spoonful. The baby girl finally smiled, and in that moment, he seemed to see the light. His laughter was very pleasant, like a silver bell, so I named him Jiayan. Wang Fengshen gave up the idea of handing over Jiayan to the police, because he himself grew up eating from hundreds of families. He felt that it was better for him to take care of Jia Yin carefully than to let her suffer in the orphanage. So, Wang Fengshen made a cradle with a hook for hanging pork and usually put the baby girl in it. He relied on his meager knowledge of parenting and the help of his neighbors to raise Jiayan day by day. Just when Jiayan was about to go to kindergarten, Wang Fengshen encountered obstacles when applying for household registration. This is because according to the law, single men are not allowed to adopt baby girls. It is said that such regulations are to prevent underage. Wang Fengshen was helpless. He tried many connections, but he was destined not to be able to accompany this child's growth. But he also didn't want to give Jia Yin to strangers to raise. He felt that he should at least find a wealthy family for this child. I heard that rich people like to play tennis, so I wander around the tennis court every day looking for someone to adopt Jia Yin. So I found the Sumayaozhen couple, and I heard from the side. This couple has high education and good jobs. They are outstanding talents and definitely stronger than me, a butcher. I'm afraid that if I give Jia Yin directly to them, they will refuse adoption. So I secretly put Jia Yin next to their car and pretended he was an abandoned child. As I expected, they adopted the child. I really can't bear to part with this daughter. I tell myself that all of this is for good news. Only Sumayaozhen and his wife can legitimately adopt Jia Yin, teach him how to play tennis, send him to a prestigious school, and let him take the college entrance exam. Since seeing off Jiayan, Wang Fengshen has repeatedly warned himself not to disturb his life or make him remember him from now on. Sometimes when he thinks too much, He runs to the place where Zijian goes to school. As long as he looks at it from afar, he is satisfied. Unfortunately, it is difficult to draw bones when drawing dragons or tigers. And one knows a person's face but not their heart. At first, Sumayaozhen and his wife did their best for this adopted daughter. Li Hongmai was unable to have children due to health reasons, and they had originally planned to adopt a child. Su Jiayan's arrival seemed like a godsend. However, as Su Jiayan grows older and has a slender figure, Sumayaozhen cannot obtain satisfaction from his wife. I had crooked thoughts about this adopted daughter when Su Jiayan was 14 years old. One afternoon, when he followed his father to play tennis and went home to take a shower, Sumayaozhen secretly turned off the bathroom light when the incident happened. Sumayaozhen threatened Su Jiayan not to tell anyone about this matter. Anyway, I can only go to jail for a few years at most. Your whole life will be ruined. We are a father and daughter, and I can continue to you after I come out. You can't even hide. Su Jiayan, who is extremely afraid, had to seek help from her mother. After weighing the pros and cons, Li Hongmai not only did not stop her husband, but also asked Su Jiayan to remain silent. Moreover, they confiscated Su Jiayan's phone, banned him from making friends, and further isolated him. Let him have no one to rely on and can only obey his parents. Just when Su Jiayan didn't know what to do, unexpectedly, Li Qi's nitpicking unexpectedly reunited Wang Fengshen and Su Jiayan. Although Su Jiayan has long forgotten about this father, but as soon as Wang Fengshen's mansion appeared, he felt that this person was trustworthy. So Su Jiayan told Wang Fengshen everything about her experience. At first, Wang Fengshen was shocked and angry, wishing to dismember Sumayaozhen and cut him into pieces. But what he cares more about is whether Su Jiayan can get justice, and whether justice can be served. He knows that Sumayaozhen is smart and cunning, and also has some connections. To expose this despicable matter, it is necessary to attract the attention of the public security, procuratorate, and court at the same time. So he planned this murder and dismemberment case, with the aim of making Sumayaozhen stand in the spotlight with nowhere to hide. As expected, Li Hongmai lowered her head in shame. The flesh on Sumayaozhen's cheeks kept twitching. After clarifying the cause of the matter, the procuratorate revoked the decision to prosecute Wang Fengshen. They did not even hold Wang Fengshen responsible for forging evidence and wasting judicial resources, which can be said to be very generous. As for Sumayaozhen, he was not so lucky. The prosecutor's office decided to launch an investigation against him. The investigation includes not only his long-term harm to Su Jiayan, but also his official criminal record. Just the day before we decided to arrest him, this high-achieving student and his wife committed suicide at home. The method of suicide is chlorine poisoning caused by mixing toilet cleaner and disinfectant. They taped the door cracked tightly, so we struggled to open the door. Neither of them left a suicide note, but I think they deliberately chose the place where Su Jiayan was first heard to commit suicide. Maybe it's because I feel ashamed from the bottom of my heart. Losing her foster parents all at once is a very heavy thing for Su Jiayan. Fortunately, she has grown up and is no longer the little girl abandoned in the cat bed. Even if she lives alone, she can take good care of herself, let alone she has a guardian angel. Since the news of Su Jiayan's foster parents' suicide spread in school, everyone has been spreading various rumors. Some are very harsh, but he is not afraid, because he has a good friend Li Che as long as someone dares to speak ill of Su Jiayan. Regardless of gender, Li Che, who has a fierce personality, will fly over with a bench. Then everyone will be surprisingly quiet, and Naoja girls are wearing the same manicure. Using the same rhinestone phone case, we were punished to stand in the hallway together because we were late. Every time Li Che boasts to me about how good their relationship is now, I couldn't help but criticize him. Don't just lead him astray, at least learn from him. Do you still want to take the police academy exam? Leach smiled sweetly at me. If I get into the police academy, will there be any rewards?